Hi everyone, I'm Shelly from There's No Place Like Home at redheadmom8.wordpress.com. I have made oodles and oodles of videos about how we homeschool, but I realized that I never really get too much into how we specifically homeschool art, music, and gym. And I realized that because I've had more than a few people ask me how we get it done. So that's what I'm going to share with you today. When we first started homeschooling, I did what I think a lot of new homeschooling parents do, in that I tried to replicate school at home. So when we first started homeschooling, our art, music, and gym, among all of the other subjects, looked really, really differently than they do now. When we first started, I actually tried to just do what they were doing at home. I had a specific day for art, a specific day for music, and I even had a specific day for gym. And yeah, I did have an art curriculum. It wasn't so much a full curriculum. It was just a workbook showing different art projects, and I even did them in order each week. And I even had not a music curriculum, but I did have a music book that had songs printed out, and then it had a CD for you to play. So every Monday was our art day. So that's when I would take the next project out of the art workbook, and we would do that on Monday, which was art day. Wednesday was our gym day, and it never even crossed my mind when I first started homeschooling that my kids were doing gym all the time, because my kids are extremely active, and whether they were outdoors, indoors, they were always doing something physical. But I still took it upon myself. Every Wednesday I made sure that the kids either at least got out into our backyard, or they went to the baseball field across the street, or they went to the playground across the street next to the baseball field. And I was always intentional about having a gym day, which was Wednesdays for us. Then Friday was our music day. And on music day, what I did was I would photocopy one of the songs for each of the kids, and I would hand it out to them. I would play the CD, and I would stand in front of our classroom. At that time I called it our classroom. I know a lot of people call them schoolrooms. We always called it our classroom. And I even had little desks that I got at a thrift store that were from a school. And all the kids would sit at their little desks, and I would stand at the front of the class like a music teacher, and I would play the CD, and everybody would follow along with their worksheet in hand. And that is what art, music, and gym looked like when we first started homeschooling. But now we're going to be next month entering into our 11th year of homeschooling, and it has really, really changed in how we approach these things. Because as I have tried so many different homeschooling methods, I have really come to realize how easily all of these subjects, these three subjects specifically, can be integrated not just into your homeschool lessons, but into everyday life. So I no longer have specific days set aside for art, music, or gym, and I don't even use a curriculum for art, music, and gym. Now, I know that there are a lot of great art curriculums out there. There are a lot of great music curriculums out there. And I've even heard lately that there are physical education curriculums, which was new to me. I had no idea there was such a thing. And if my kids ever showed interest into wanting to do something specifically like an art curriculum or a music curriculum, I would probably look into it. But up until this point, the kids have been happy doing things the way that we have grown to start doing it. So what we do, I'll start with art, is my kids are very artistic. So the one thing that I do, which really helps out the most, is that I try to keep art supplies on hand all the time. We have an art cabinet in our living room, and I try to keep it stocked up with paints and watercolor pencils, regular pencils or regular colored pencils, permanent markers, because Sharpies is what I'm talking about, because they are really nice for drawing. Watercolor paper in there. There's origami paper in there. A lot of times I will even have like modeling clay, Play-Doh, little odds and ends like sequins and goo eyes and pipe cleaners, and anything that you can think of that has to do with arts or crafts. I really do try to keep stocked up in our art cabinet. So that is of huge help for us, because my kids, anytime that they choose to, can just go into that art cabinet and they can start creating things anytime that they want. Does this mean that I never incorporate it into our homeschool routine? No, but it's not something that I ever set about to do separately, because I feel like we haven't been doing it enough, because art is definitely done enough in our house. But very often, since we do unit studies, yeah, art will fit right in with something that we're doing. For example, we read a poem, I think it was called The Fog, not too long ago, and the kids did chalk pastel drawings of fog, or what the poem made them think of. A lot of times we'll do crafts. When we were learning about Scotland, they made, little sheep using cotton and doilies and paper plates. So if we have a specific art activity that works well in with a unit study that we are doing, then yeah, we will do art in that way also. Now, some of my kids have also taken art classes at an art school which is nearby. And not all of my kids have done this, just my kids who are more serious about art. Some of them really like to do it for more fun reasons. And then I have specifically 2 daughters who are really, really serious about it. And they are the ones who, yes, they did take art classes at certain points over the years. But honestly, that is how we cover art in our homeschool. Naturally, in their spare time, we will sometimes work it in with their unit studies, and also art classes if my kids choose to do that. And I will also say that my kids are in, a lot of kids programs, or sometimes they go to VBS, and crafts are done in those places as well. So let's move on to music. Music, again, is one of those areas that works naturally into our lives, because my kids love music. They love to sing. They love to dance. So there's always music on. And then, if they're dancing in the living room, you could even count that for physical education for the younger kids. But, again, it's never been something that my kids have been really, really serious about. I've never had kids who really wanted to take voice lessons, and I have never had kids who were really serious about wanting to learn to play a musical instrument. Now, we do have some odds and ends around our house. We have a keyboard, and we have a set of bongo drums, and we even do have a set of mini drums in the house. And I was talking to the kids about getting a ukulele for them to just learn to play on in their spare time. But again, it's something that we just incorporate naturally. And as with the art with the unit studies, music very often will fit right in with our unit studies. When we were learning about Scotland, my kids learned the song Scotland the Brave, and they would sing it every single day when we would start out the unit study. And what was really neat at that time was we have someone at our church who plays bagpipes. So as we were learning about Scotland the one Sunday, he played bagpipes during the offering at our church. So that, that worked really neatly in with that. So yeah, even if you look at outside activities like the church activities that my kids are in, they're very often singing, in the Christmas show, or they are singing in specific kids programs that are going on, and they will very often get their music in that way as well. But even moving back into the unit studies, when we learned about the medieval times, my kids learned the song Here We Go A-Wassailing. So as we set up a huge medieval feast for this unit study, the kids the whole time were learning Here We Go A-Wassailing. They were practicing singing it. And then we actually invited people to come to our medieval feast, and my kids stood in the front of the dinner and they sang that song. So again, it isn't something that we have ever specifically used a separate curriculum for. It is something that has always seemed to work its way naturally into what we do. And I even have to add that one of my sons, and I think one of my daughters as well, in their journals, they very often write their own songs. And my son, he comes down all the time and he sings his songs to me. And he gets a little bit embarrassed when he's doing it, but there are other times that he's really into it. And it's not something that I've ever asked him to do. It's just something that he naturally wanted to do. So yeah, music really can be incorporated into your homeschool, into your lives naturally. And if you choose not to use a curriculum, that's fine, because it'll happen. Now, moving on to physical education. I think it's a given that most kids are probably pretty active, especially if you set aside time limits, for example, on screen time, because I know that if you don't have a limit on your screen time for your kids. Now, some kids are perfectly fine with that. Other kids really have a struggle in getting away from that screen and getting out there and getting moving. And you know what? I noticed that with my own kids for the longest time. I had tried to go without screen limits a few years ago, and it didn't work for us. I noticed that my kids were not wanting to do anything but the screens. So we started putting a limit on that time. And yes, they will naturally do things. You know, when my kids are outside, they might be jumping on the neighbor's trampoline, or they might be bike riding, or riding their scooters, playing tag, playing hide and seek, swimming. And again, this isn't something that we've ever had to intentionally set apart a time to do, because it's something that has always happened naturally for us. Now, yes, it's always an option that I could have one of my kids join Little League, or I actually asked one of my daughters if she was interested in joining the church softball team, and she wasn't. But there are other opportunities like that that can arise as well if you choose to do that. And even I was talking about VBS earlier and about the kids programs at church. And yeah, VBS for not for my church, but there's a church close by that my kids go to the Bible school every single summer. They have it at a park, and it's huge. They always have well over 100 kids there. And so that's huge for us. I don't know, that might not be huge for you. It's huge for us. But anyway, they actually work with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and they will have a basketball and an all sport program first for about an hour and a half before they move into the Bible school activities. And the sport program is completely voluntary. You don't have to do it if you're doing Bible school. You can do just one or the other. But my kids always choose to do both. And so, yeah, they're getting a lot of their physical education in that way. And even with the regular VBS program, there's lots of running around and water games. And the same goes with the programs at our church. You know, the kids are always playing, sharks and minnows and dodgeball and all of these, sweat-inducing activities that definitely constitute physical education. Now, yeah, I'm going to admit that it starts to get a little bit harder when kids get into the high school years, if they're not, playing a specific sport, or if they're not really the athletic type. And so what very often happens in our high school years is a lot of walks will happen. Sometimes working out in the house will happen. I know that my son, who graduated last year, he loved skateboarding. So he was always out skateboarding all the time, even when he was in high school. And actually he still skateboards now, and he's 19. So you just, you have to get creative with your older kids sometimes, but especially if you encourage them, if you say to them, hey, let's go for a walk, or if you like to run, invite your kids for a run. There are other ways that you can get these things into your homeschool without having to set aside a specific day or to have a specific curriculum for that. Because in my opinion, and again, if you use a curriculum for these things, that is awesome, because no homeschools should look the same. No people are the same, no families are the same, no homeschools are going to look the same, and that is perfectly fine. That is the beauty of this world, is the variety of people in it. But in my opinion, for us, it just seems that having set aside a specific time of day or specific activities in a curriculum to do, it really seems schoolish to us. And if you know me, if you've watched my other videos, you will know that I have a bit of an aversion to the school system in general. So I try to steer clear of our family looking like that as much as possible. But anyway, that is how we get art, music, and gym accomplished. I hope that it's helped you or given you some ideas, or at least, helped you to realize that you don't have to approach everything in like a traditional classroom sort of way. So anyway, that's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one on Instagram. I will leave the link in the description box because YouTube has disabled my comments. And if you like my work and would like to check out my Patreon page and see what rewards I have for my patrons there, I will also leave that in the description box. And I hope you have a great day.